He sits alone in his room, with nothing but the faint hum of the ceiling fan breaking the quiet. The night feels heavy, as if the air itself is waiting for him to make a decision he has avoided for far too long. His phone lies on the table in front of him, the screen glowing every few seconds, lighting up the darkness with notifications that mean nothing except the one message he wishes he had received, but it never comes. For weeks, he has been the one investing effort, sending long paragraphs trying to keep conversations alive, asking questions she never asked back, trying to fix a connection that was slowly dying on her end. Every time she left him unseen, his chest tightened. Every late reply felt like confirmation of his deepest fear, that he cared more than she did. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when her messages came instantly, when she laughed at everything he said, when she used to double text him first, asking about his day, wanting updates, craving attention. But something changed. The warmth faded. The tone shifted. And instead of accepting reality, he started chasing what was already slipping away. Tonight is different. He stares at the phone. But this time, he doesn't reach for it. He doesn't draft another message he'll delete. He doesn't reread old conversations, hoping to find what went wrong. He doesn't check her last scene. He doesn't check who she followed today. He doesn't try to decode the silence. Tonight, you finally understand something that men learn too late. You lose your power the moment you start chasing. You lose yourself the moment you start begging for attention. He takes a slow breath and flips the phone face down. The screen goes dark, and for the first time in weeks, the darkness feels peaceful. He leans back, closes his eyes, and recognizes the truth that's been whispering inside him. If she wanted to talk, she would have. If she cared, he would feel it. If she wanted to stay, she wouldn't make him question everything. There's a small ache in his chest. But beneath that ache is something stronger, a rising sense of clarity. He has been giving energy to someone who no longer values it. He has been fighting for a place in a life where he's treated as optional. And every late reply, every cold message, every unanswered text was silently telling him, stop trying. Walk away. Choose yourself. He stands up from his chair and walks to the mirror. The man staring back at him looks tired, not physically, but emotionally exhausted. Chasing someone who doesn't reciprocate slowly kills your confidence, your masculinity, your spirit. It makes you forget who you were before the chase began. He studies his reflection as if meeting himself again. He remembers the version of him who didn't need validation. The version who had standards. The version who didn't fear losing someone who didn't care. That man had disappeared. But he wasn't gone. He was buried under desperation, under hope, under emotional dependence. And tonight, he decides to bring that man back. He walks back to the table, picks up his phone, and opens their chat one last time. The last message he sent is still unread. A small smile forms on his face, not out of bitterness, but out of understanding. He whispers to himself, never again. Closes the chat. He closes the app. He turns off notifications. And in that small act, something powerful happens. The anxiety melts away. Because anxiety only exists when you're waiting for someone else to decide your worth. But he's done waiting. He steps outside his room and walks into the open air. The night sky feels different now, lighter, calmer. He breathes deeply, and for the first time the breath doesn't feel forced. It feels natural, grounded, peaceful. He realizes something important. Silence isn't a weakness. Silence is a boundary. Silence is self-respect. Not texting her is not about playing games. Not chasing her is not about manipulation. Not caring is not about being heartless. It's about understanding one thing. If a woman needs distance, give her distance. If she's pulling away, let her go. If she's unsure about you, don't try to convince her. A man doesn't win by forcing someone to stay. He wins by respecting his own value. He returns to his room, but now the room feels different. It feels like a place he controls, not a prison built by waiting for a message that may never come. He sits down again, but this time his mind is calm. No more overthinking. No more desperation. No more emotional chaos. He knows this is the turning point. The moment where everything changes, not because she texted back, but because he finally stopped trying. And in that silence, in that calm, in that decision, he wins. Days begin to pass, slowly at first, then faster. But something is different now. He's no longer living through his phone. He's no longer measuring his worth by the speed of someone else's replies. The urge to check her messages fades a little more each day. And as he pulls back, something unexpected begins to happen. She starts to feel the silence. It always starts small at first. She assumes he's busy. She tells herself, he'll text later. But later comes and goes, and there's still nothing from him. That's when her mind begins to wander. She reopens their old chats, scrolling through the conversations she once took for granted. She sees the way he used to invest, the energy he used to bring, the warmth he used to pour into every message. And now, nothing. A tiny spark of discomfort forms in her chest. Women don't panic immediately. They analyze. They observe. They notice the shift. She wonders, did I do something? She clicks on his profile. He is active, but silent. He posted a story, but not for her. He liked a friend's picture, but not hers. Confusion turns into curiosity. Curiosity turns into concern. And concern slowly becomes a growing sense of loss. Because women don't miss the man who chases. They miss the man who stops. Meanwhile, he's not doing it to get her attention. He's not sitting in a dark room plotting how to make her miss him. He's simply living the way he should have been all along. At the gym, pushing himself harder than before. At work, focused and driven. His routine becomes healthier, sharper, more intentional. And without realizing it, he becomes someone she can no longer predict. That unpredictability, that silence, that shift in energy, it begins to pull her in. She checks her phone more often now. She opens their chat window, waiting for the typing indicator, but it never appears, and the silence begins to echo. She remembers how she used to delay replies on purpose, thinking it made her more desirable. She remembers ignoring his messages because she assumed he'd always be there. But now she feels the consequences of her own games. For the first time, she feels what he once felt, the sting of uncertainty. She starts creating scenarios in her mind. Is he talking to someone else? Did he lose interest? Has he finally realized he deserves better? Women's minds don't stay still when their ego is challenged. And nothing challenges the ego more than a man who suddenly stops pursuing. She starts posting more often. Indirect captions, extra makeup, subtle hints made to catch his attention. But every time she looks, he still hasn't viewed it. She scrolls through her notifications hoping for his name, but it isn't there. And that absence begins to bother her more than she ever expected. Because the truth is simple. Men fall in love with presence. Women fall in love with absence. And now he has become her absence. Over the next few days, her thoughts shift from curiosity to worry. She notices how empty their chat thread looks without his energy. She replays voice notes he once sent. She reads old messages he wrote straight from the heart. She remembers the version of herself who once valued him and the version of herself who deepened suddenly. His silence becomes a mirror, reflecting her behavior back at her. She starts to miss him, not the needy version. Not the chasing version, but the grounded, attentive, warm version of him she once pushed away. She misses the emotional security he gave without asking for anything in return. She misses the conversations she used to shrug off. And missing him turns into wanting him. But here's the twist. He's no longer waiting. He's no longer desperate. He's no longer trying to earn something that should have been mutual. He's becoming a better man, one who carries himself with purpose, with direction, with confidence. A man whose life is bigger than a text message. A man who isn't afraid to lose someone who didn't appreciate him. The more he grows, the more she notices. Because women can sense when a man shifts from emotional dependence to emotional strength. They can feel the difference. They can feel the distance. And they can feel when a man is becoming someone other women will want. And that fear, that realization, that she might lose him to someone else, makes her start to value him again. She starts checking his profile late at night. She types messages but doesn't send them. She drafts a hey, then deletes it. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, unsure whether she wants to break the silence or protect her pride. But pride doesn't stand strong forever. Not against fear. Not against ego. Not against the feeling of slipping out of someone's world without meaning to. And slowly, she begins to understand the truth. She didn't lose him because someone else took him. She lost him because she gave him too little, and he finally learned to give himself more. And now, she's the one thinking about him before bed. She's the one checking her phone first thing in the morning. She's the one replaying memories. She's the one missing the attention she once thought she didn't need. When a man stops chasing, it doesn't just create distance. He creates reflection. He creates contrast. He forces her to see what life feels like without him. And in that silence, in that space, in that shift, she starts noticing everything she never noticed before. He didn't plan to become mysterious. He didn't plan to become distant. But the moment he stopped caring about what she thought, something inside him changed. For the first time in a long time. He wasn't thinking about how his actions would be interpreted. He wasn't thinking about how fast to reply, what to post, or whether she would notice. He was simply living, and there is nothing more powerful or more unpredictable than a man who lives without seeking anyone's approval. His routine transformed. He woke up earlier. He trained harder. He smiled more, not because he got validation, but because he no longer needed it. Women can sense when a man's energy shifts, and she felt this shift instantly. He wasn't cold. He was free. He wasn't distant. He was focused. He wasn't ignoring her. He was choosing himself. And that was the part that bothered her, because when a man stops caring, the dynamic flips. He becomes the wild card, the unknown, the question mark she can't solve. She used to know exactly how he'd react. She used to predict his feelings, his patterns, his attention. But now, every action he takes makes her wonder what's going on in his mind. She posts something, expecting him to like it immediately, but he doesn't. She sends a story hinting at her mood, but he doesn't respond. She updates her profile, but he doesn't check. The silence she once used as power now traps her with uncertainty, and uncertainty is powerful. She begins to imagine scenarios. Is he over me? Is he seeing someone else? Has he finally moved on? Women aren't afraid of losing attention. They're afraid of losing influence. And now she has lost hers over him. Meanwhile, his world keeps expanding. He's focused on his goals, his growth, his discipline. He's becoming the kind of man who doesn't chase women. Women chase him. And every time she sees him enjoying life without including her, something tightens in her chest. Because when a man stops caring, he stops being predictable. And unpredictability is the most attractive trait a man can have. It makes her rethink everything, the way she treated him. The moments she took for granted, the effort she ignored, she finally sees what she missed. A man who gave her consistency. A man who showed her genuine interest. A man who offered loyalty without conditions. But now that man is gone, replaced by someone stronger, calmer, and more in control. She can't read him anymore. She can't predict him anymore. She can't influence him anymore. And that is what makes him irresistible. He didn't become better to win her back. He became better because he stopped caring whether he won or lost. And in that transformation, in that freedom, she finds herself drawn toward the very man she once pushed away.